No man for 30 years. The town's women nearly took me apart on arrival. The town was small and quiet, the kind of place where people knew each other's names and even their habits. It was surrounded by hills and trees with a single main road that led in and out. There was a small school, a grocery store, a church, and a few houses. But there was one thing that made the town different from other places. For almost 30 years, no man had lived there for a long time. The town's women had learned to live without men. They had raised children alone, fixed things that broke, and handled every problem that came their way. At first, it had been hard. People talked about how strange it was, how unfair it was, how life had changed. But over time, the women became strong in their own way. They learned to depend on each other. They shared work, money, and even emotions. They became the town's leaders, the town's builders, and the town's protectors. People who lived outside the town often thought it was a strange place. They told stories about it like it was a legend. Some said the town was cursed. Others said it was a choice, a decision the women had made long ago. The truth was quieter than those stories. It was simply a place where things had changed, and everyone had learned to adapt. When the man arrived, he did not know any of this. He came with a suitcase and a small backpack. He was not a tourist. He had a job to do. He had been hired for a short project that would last only a few weeks. He had heard about the town from his boss, who said it was a peaceful place, perfect for the work. The man had never been there before. He had no idea what he was walking into. He drove slowly down the main road, watching the houses and the people. The town looked normal at first. The buildings were clean, the streets were quiet, and there was a calm feeling in the air. But he noticed something else too. He saw women standing in groups, talking quietly and looking at him. He saw older women sitting on porches, watching his car as if it was something unusual. Even the children seemed curious. They stared at him as he passed. He stopped his car in front of the only hotel in town. The hotel was small but well kept. The woman at the front desk smiled politely and asked for his name. She was friendly, but there was a careful look in her eyes, like she was trying to understand him before she decided how to treat him. He signed in and went to his room. That night, he walked to the grocery store to buy food. The store was simple, but it had everything he needed. The woman behind the counter greeted him. She asked where he was from and why he was here. When he said he was here for work, her smile stayed, but her eyes changed. She nodded, as if she understood something deeper than his words. As he walked back to the hotel, he felt like he was being watched. Not in a scary way, but in a way that made him feel like he was a strange, new object in a familiar world. He tried to think of it as curiosity. People were curious about new faces. That was normal, but the attention was more than curiosity. It felt like the town was studying him. The next morning, he went to the project site. A group of women met him there. They introduced themselves, but their voices were careful, as if they were speaking to someone they didn't fully trust yet. They showed him the work area and explained the tasks. He noticed that they spoke to each other differently too. They were used to working together. They knew each other's strengths and weaknesses. They had built a routine that worked without a man. And now, a man was in the middle of that routine. He tried to focus on his work, but he could feel the town's eyes on him. When he walked to the store, people stared. When he walked past the school, the children watched. When he sat at the small cafe, women sat near him and talked quietly. He could hear pieces of their conversations. Words like new, man, and stay floated through the air. He started to feel uncomfortable. He had expected some attention, but He had not expected this level of interest. He began to understand that he was not just a worker. He was something else. He was a symbol. The town had been without a man for a long time, and he was the first one to come in years. He did not know what to do with that knowledge. He tried to act normal. He smiled, said hello, and tried to be polite, but he could tell that some women were watching him more closely than others. Some were friendly, some were quiet. Some seemed to be waiting for him to make a mistake. The man was not used to this kind of attention. In the city, people did not look at strangers for long. They were busy with their own lives. Here, life moved slower, and people noticed everything. The man began to understand that his arrival had created a ripple in the town's calm water. That evening, he was invited to a small gathering at the home of one of the women from the project. He accepted because he wanted to show that he was respectful and friendly. He thought it would be a simple dinner with a few people. He did not know it would be a test. When he arrived, the house was warm and welcoming. The women greeted him with smiles and offered him food. The conversation started casually. They asked about his job, his background, and his life. He answered politely, but then the questions became more personal. They asked him about his family. They asked if he had ever lived in a town like theirs. They asked if he had ever felt lonely. The man answered carefully. He did not want to give them too much information, but he also did not want to seem rude. He tried to keep the conversation light, but the women did not seem interested in light conversation. They wanted to know who he was. They wanted to understand why he had come. They wanted to know if he would stay. He realized that the questions were not only about him, they were about the town too. The women wanted to know if his arrival could change something. They wanted to know if the town's old loneliness would return to them. They wanted to know if their lives would change again. The man tried to remain calm. He did not want to cause trouble. He had a job to do, and he wanted to do it well. But he could feel the pressure building. He felt like he was walking on thin ice. After the dinner, he walked back to the hotel. He thought about the women he had met. He thought about the way they looked at him. He thought about how they had spoken to him. He realized that his arrival was not just a personal event. It was a moment that mattered to the whole town. He sat on the bed and stared at the wall. He wondered if he had made a mistake by coming here. He wondered if he could handle the attention. He wondered if he could do his job without causing harm. But he also felt something else. He felt a strange kind of respect for the women. They had built a life without men. They had learned to support each other in ways that most people never had to. They had become strong in a quiet way. The man understood that their strength came from years of survival, from years of dealing with the world alone. He thought about the stories he had heard outside the town. He thought about the rumors. He realized that those stories were not accurate. They did not understand the real life of the town. The town was not a legend. It was a place where people lived, worked, and loved. Just like anywhere else. It was simply different. The next day, the man woke up early. He went to the project site and began his work again. He tried to keep his mind focused. He tried to treat the town like any other place. But he knew it would not be that simple. As he worked, he saw women watching him from a distance. He saw them whispering to each other. He saw the way their eyes moved. He understood that his presence had changed something inside them. He could feel the town's curiosity and its fear. He could feel the town's hope and its pain. He knew that the coming days would be difficult. He knew that he would have to be careful with his words and actions. He knew that he would have to respect the town's feelings. But he also knew that he had a job to do, and he was determined to do it well, even if the town's attention made him nervous. He did not yet know how deeply his arrival would affect the town. He did not yet know how the women would react. He did not yet know how the town's history would come back to life. All he knew was that he had arrived, and the town had noticed. After the first few days, the man began to understand the true meaning of the attention he was receiving. It was not just curiosity, it was something deeper. It was the kind of attention that came from years of missing something important. The town had grown used to living without men, and now a man was in their world again. The women were not only curious, they were waiting for something to happen. The man tried to ignore it, but he could feel it every day. When he walked down the street, women would stop and talk to each other. They would look at him as if they were trying to read his thoughts. Sometimes he would catch a woman staring at him for a long moment, and she would quickly look away when he noticed. The man began to feel like a stranger in a place where everyone knew each other, and where everyone also knew what he represented. At the work site, the women worked with him, but they treated him differently than they treated each other. They spoke to him with extra politeness, as if they were trying to show respect. But sometimes their voices sounded tight, as if they were holding back something. The man began to wonder if he was doing something wrong without even knowing it. He tried to be friendly and helpful. He smiled and tried to talk to people, but the women's conversations often stopped when he approached. It felt like he had become a topic, not a person. He began to feel lonely in a place that was full of people. One afternoon, he walked into the grocery store and saw a group of women standing near the entrance. They looked like they were waiting for someone. When they saw him, they smiled, but their smiles did not feel relaxed. The man nodded and tried to walk past, but one of the women stepped forward and asked him to stay and talk. He hesitated, but he agreed. He thought it would be polite. They walked to the side of the store where the light was better, and the women began to ask him questions. Their voices were soft, but their eyes were serious. "Do you plan to stay?" one of them asked. The man replied, "No, I'm only here for work. It will be a few weeks." One of them nodded slowly. Another woman asked, "Do you have a family?" The man answered, "Yes. I have a sister and a mother. They live in the city." They asked more questions, and the man answered as best as he could. He felt like he was being interviewed, but he also felt like they were trying to understand him, not for his sake, but for their own. When the conversation ended, the women thanked him and walked away. The man felt a strange relief. He was tired of being watched, but he also felt sad. He realized that the town had lived without men for so long that they had forgotten how to interact with one. He understood that the women were not trying to be rude. They were simply trying to understand a part of life that had been missing. That night, he went to the cafe again. He sat alone at a table and ordered food. A woman approached him and asked if she could sit with him. He agreed. She introduced herself as one of the women who worked at the school. She spoke kindly, but her voice carried a serious tone. She said, "We are not used to having men here. We have learned to live without them. But your presence has made us feel things we did not expect." The man listened carefully. He asked her, "What kind of feelings?" She replied, "Some of us feel hope. Some of us feel fear. Some of us feel angry. We do not know what to do with these feelings." The man nodded slowly. He tried to imagine what it would be like to live in a place like this for so long. He thought about the children growing up without fathers, the women working alone, and the quiet nights without men's voices. He realized that the town had created a life that worked, but it had also created a life that was missing something. The woman continued, "We have created a strong community. We help each other. But we also feel like we have been forgotten by the world. We do not have the same kind of support other places have. When you arrived, We felt like the world had finally come back to us. The man was surprised. He had not expected the town to feel forgotten. He had thought they were simply strong and independent. But he realized that strength often comes from pain. He realized that the women were not only proud, they were also tired. He asked, "Do you want men to come back?" The woman hesitated. Then she said, "We want the choice. We want to decide. We do not want anyone to force anything on us." The man understood. He realized that the town had built its life carefully. They had chosen to live without men because it was the only way they could survive. But they also wanted to keep control of their lives. They did not want the arrival of a man to change their world without their permission. After the cafe, the man walked back to the hotel. He felt a new kind of pressure. He felt like he was walking on a line between being welcomed and being rejected. He understood that his presence could either bring happiness or cause trouble. The next day, he began to notice small changes in the way people behaved around him. The women who had been friendly became quieter. The women who had been quiet became more watchful. Even the children began to stare more openly. The man felt like he had become the center of the town's attention. One morning, he received a note at the hotel. But it was written in simple handwriting. It said, "Please come to the community hall at 6. We need to talk." The man felt nervous. He did not know what to expect. He had not been invited to any official meeting. He wondered if he had done something wrong. He wondered if the town was angry with him. At 6, he walked to the community hall. The building was old, but well cared for. When he entered, he saw many women sitting in chairs. They looked serious. Some of them were older, some younger. They all looked at him with careful eyes. A woman stood up and spoke. She said, "We want to welcome you, but we also want to be clear about our town." She continued, "We have lived without men for a long time. We have built our lives in a certain way. We are not trying to be strange. We are not trying to be difficult. We are simply protecting what we have." The man listened. He felt a mix of relief and fear. He was relieved that they were speaking to him directly. He was afraid because he did not know what they would say next. The woman said, "We want you to understand that your presence affects us. We want you to be respectful. We want you to be careful. We want you to know that we are not used to this." Another woman stood up and added, "We do not want you to stay if you make things difficult, but we also do not want you to leave if you are respectful and kind." The man nodded. He understood their message. They were not asking him to leave. They were asking him to understand them. They were asking him to be careful with their feelings. The meeting ended, and the women left quietly. The man stayed behind for a moment. He felt the weight of their words. He realized that he was not just a visitor. He was a person who could change their lives, even if he did not want to. As he walked back to the hotel, he thought about the town's history. He thought about how it must have been to live without men for so long. He thought about the women's strength and their fear. He realized that his arrival was not a simple event. It was a moment that would change the town, even if only a little. That night, he sat in his room and wrote in his notebook. He wrote about the women, the town, and the way he felt. He wrote about the pressure he felt and the responsibility he now understood. He knew that the next days would be difficult. He knew that he would have to be careful with every word. But he also felt something else. He felt a sense of respect for the town. He felt a sense of hope. He realized that he had a chance to learn something important. He had a chance to see how people could survive and thrive in a world that was different from the one he knew. He did not know what the future held. He did not know how the women would react next. He did not know if he would be welcomed or pushed away. But he knew one thing. The town had noticed him, and the town was waiting. After the meeting at the community hall, the man felt a new kind of tension in the town. The women had been clear about their rules and their feelings. They had told him that he was welcome only if he behaved with respect. The man understood the message. He knew he had to be careful, but he also knew that being careful would not be easy. The next morning, he woke up early and went to the worksite. The women greeted him, but their faces looked more serious than before. It was as if they were watching him, not only for what he said, but for how he acted. The man tried to stay focused on his work. He wanted to do his job well and leave the town with a good reputation. But the pressure began to affect him. He found himself thinking about the town all the time. He felt like he was being judged for every small thing he did. Even when he tried to be friendly, he worried that he was crossing a line. He did not want to offend anyone. He did not want to cause trouble, but he also did not want to become a quiet, invisible person. One afternoon, he walked to the grocery store to buy food. He saw a young woman standing near the entrance. She looked nervous. She held a small paper bag in her hand. When she saw him, she hesitated. Then she walked toward him and stopped. She said softly, "Can I talk to you?" The man nodded. He felt a small shock of surprise. He was not used to being approached like this. He had been approached by groups before, but never by someone alone and nervous. He wondered what she wanted. She said, "I heard you are here for work." "I want to ask you something," the man replied. "Sure, what is it?" She looked down at the bag in her hands and then back at him. She said, "I want to know if you have ever felt lonely." The man thought for a moment. He did not know why she was asking, but he answered honestly. "Yes," he said, "I have felt lonely before." Sometimes people feel lonely even when they are surrounded by others. The young woman nodded slowly. She looked like she wanted to say more but was afraid. Then she asked, "Do you ever miss having someone to talk to, someone who understands you?" The man felt a sadness in her voice. He realized that she was not only asking about him, she was asking about herself. He understood that the town's women had been living with a kind of loneliness for a long time. They had built a strong community, but they still missed something. He said gently, "Yes, I understand. It is normal to want someone who understands you." The young woman looked at him for a moment, then said, "I am sorry. I should not be asking you this. You have your own life." The man shook his head. "No, it is okay. You can talk to me." She smiled slightly as if she was relieved. She said, "Thank you." Then she said, "I am not trying to be rude. I have never had a man in my life like this. Not like you. I mean, I have met men before, but not like someone who stays. Not like someone who might be part of my world." The man listened carefully. He could feel the weight of her words. He realized that the town's women were not just curious. They were hopeful. They were thinking about what life would be like if a man stayed. They were imagining a future that had not existed for years. The young woman said, "I want to ask you something else. Do you think you could stay longer?" The man felt his heart beat faster. He had not expected this question. He thought of his work, his life outside the town, and his plans. He had come for a few weeks. He had not planned to stay longer. He replied, "I am not sure. My job is only for a few weeks." The young woman looked disappointed, but she did not show it. She nodded slowly and said, "I understand." She paused, then said, "Please don't leave too quickly. Even if you leave, I want you to know that your presence matters. It makes us feel like the world is not completely far away." The man felt a deep emotion in his chest. He realized that he had become more important than he had expected. He was not just a worker. He was a symbol of hope for people who had learned to live without hope. After the young woman left, the man walked slowly to the hotel. He felt a strange mix of emotions. He felt honored, but also scared. He did not want to hurt anyone. He did not want to disappoint them. He did not want to be the reason for their pain. That night, he sat in his room and thought about the town. He realized that he had never felt this kind of responsibility before. He had always lived a simple life, doing his work and moving on. But now he was in a place where his actions could change people's lives. The next day, he went back to work. The women seemed even more cautious. He could see it in their faces. They were trying to be careful with him. They were trying to keep their feelings hidden, but he could feel the tension in the air. As he worked, he heard whispers. He could not hear all the words, but he could sense the tone. Some women seemed to be discussing him like a topic. Some seemed worried, some seemed excited. He tried to ignore it, but it was hard. One afternoon, one of the older women approached him, and she was one of the leaders of the community. She had a strong voice and a calm face. She asked him to come with her to the community hall. The man followed her. Inside the hall, a few women were already sitting. They looked serious. The older woman spoke first. She said, "We need to talk about something important." The man nodded. He felt a small knot in his stomach. He wondered what the issue was. The older woman continued, "We are worried that some of our younger women are becoming too hopeful. They are thinking too much about the future. We want to protect them." The man listened carefully. He understood the concern. The town had built a life without men, and it was difficult to suddenly imagine something different. The older women had seen many things. They had experienced pain. They wanted to protect the younger ones from disappointment. The older woman said, "We are not against you. We are not asking you to leave, but we need to make sure that no one gets hurt." The man nodded slowly. He replied, "I understand." The older woman continued, "We also want you to know that some people are watching you closely. Some people are judging you. We want you to be careful." The man felt the pressure again. He realized that he could not relax. He realized that his presence was changing the town, and he had to be careful with the change. After the meeting, the man walked outside. He stood under a tree and looked at the town. He saw the women going about their lives. He saw the children playing. He saw the calm and the quiet. He thought about the town's history again. He thought about the reasons why no man had stayed for so long. He wondered if the town was ready for change. He wondered if he was ready. He knew that he could not control the town's feelings. He could not control the way people thought. He could only control his own actions. He decided to be honest, respectful, and careful. He also decided to speak to the women openly. He knew that silence would only create more rumors. He decided to talk to the community leaders and explain his intentions clearly. The next day, he asked to speak to the older woman again. He told her that he respected the town and the women. He told her that he had no plans to cause harm. He told her that he would leave when his work was finished. The older woman listened carefully. She nodded, as was Brown and Brown. She seemed to understand. She said, "Thank you for being honest. That is what we need." The man felt a small relief. He knew that the town still had questions, but he also knew that honesty was the best way to handle them. However, the pressure did not disappear. It remained in the air. You could feel it every day. The town's women were still watching him. They were still talking about him. They were still hoping. The man realized that his time in the town was becoming more than a job. It was becoming a lesson. It was becoming a test of how people handle change. He wondered if he could finish his work and leave without causing pain. He did not know what the future held. He did not know how the town would react in the coming days. He only knew that the town's attention had turned into something deeper than curiosity. It had turned into expectation. And the man understood that expectations could be heavy to carry. By the time the man reached the middle of his stay in the town, he could feel the pressure growing stronger. The women were still polite and kind, but there was a different feeling in the air now. It was not just curiosity or hope. It was tension. It was the kind of tension that happens when people want something but are afraid to admit it. The man tried to focus on his work. He continued to do his tasks carefully and correctly. He tried to be respectful to everyone, but he began to feel the weight of the town's expectations. Every time he spoke, he wondered if he was saying the right thing. Every time he walked somewhere, he wondered if he was being watched. The man was used to living without this kind of attention. He had never been in a place where his presence caused so much emotion. One day, he noticed that the women at the work site were whispering more than before. He could see them looking at him, then looking away quickly. He could feel their eyes on him, even when he was not near them. It felt like he was carrying a secret that everyone knew, but no one wanted to say out loud. He began to realize that the town's women were not only watching him, they were also watching each other. They were trying to understand how they felt. Some of them were hopeful. Some were afraid. Some were angry. The man understood that his presence had created a new kind of problem for them. He had come to the town as a worker, but he had become a part of the town's emotional world. He had become a symbol of something the town had not experienced for a long time. One evening, he received another invitation. This time, it was different. It was not a group of women. It was one woman, the one who worked at the school. She asked him to meet her at the small park near the river. She said she wanted to talk to him. The man felt nervous. He wondered why she wanted to meet him alone. He wondered if he had done something wrong. But he also felt curious. He had grown to respect her honesty. He decided to go. When he arrived at the park, the woman was already there. She sat on a bench, looking at the river. She looked calm, but her hands were shaking slightly. When she saw him, she stood up and greeted him. She said, "Thank you for coming." The man nodded. He sat beside her. He could feel the quiet of the park. The river flowed gently, and the trees swayed in the wind. It was a peaceful place, but the man could feel the tension in the air. The woman looked at him and said, "I want to be honest with you." The man listened carefully. She continued, "When you arrived, I felt something I have not felt in a long time. I felt hope. I felt the possibility of a different life." The man nodded slowly. He understood what she meant. She said, "But I am also scared. I am scared that I will be disappointed. I am scared that you will leave, and we will be back to the same life." The man listened. He could feel her fear. He could feel the pain behind her words. She continued, "I want to ask you something. Do you feel something too?" The man felt his heart beat faster. He did not expect the question. He thought for a moment. He replied, "I feel respect for you. I feel respect for the town. I feel that you are strong people." The woman looked at him and asked, "Do you feel anything more?" The man hesitated. He did not want to hurt her feelings. He did not want to give her false hope. He also did not want to lie. He said, "I feel something, but I am not sure what it is. I feel a connection to the people here. I feel like I want to help. I feel like I want to be part of something." The woman listened carefully. She nodded slowly. She said, "That is all I needed to hear. I needed to know that you are not here only for work." The man felt a mix of emotions. He felt proud, but also worried. He knew that his words could be interpreted in different ways. He knew that the town was watching him. He knew that his feelings could cause more problems. The woman continued, "I want you to understand something. We are not just looking for a man. We are looking for a life. We are looking for someone who will respect us and stay." The man nodded. He understood. She said, "But we also do not want to be hurt." "We have been hurt before." The man asked, "What happened before?" The woman looked away. She took a deep breath. She said, "Years ago, there were men in the town, but they left. They left because they could not handle the way we lived. They left because they did not respect us. They left because they thought we were strange. We were left alone, and we had to learn to survive." The man listened. He felt a deep sadness. He realized that the town's women had not only lived without men, but they had also been rejected by men before. They had been hurt, and they had learned to protect themselves. The woman continued, "We learned to build our own lives. We learned to support each other. But we also learned to be careful. We learned to protect our hearts." The man understood why the town was cautious. He understood why the women were watching him so closely. He understood why they were afraid of hope. The woman looked at him and said, "I want to ask you one more thing." The man asked, "What is it?" She said, "If you leave, will you tell people what you saw here? Will you tell them that we are not strange? Will you tell them that we are strong and kind?" The man nodded. He said, "Yes, I will tell them. I will tell them the truth." The woman smiled slightly. She looked relieved. She said, "Thank you." After that night, the man felt a new kind of responsibility. He realized that he was not only representing himself, he was representing the town. He was representing the women's strength and their pain. He was representing their hope. The next day, he returned to the work site. He tried to focus on his tasks, but he could feel the town's emotions growing stronger. He could see it in the women's faces. He could hear it in their voices. He knew that the town was reaching a point where it could not stay the same. The presence of a man was changing their lives. It was opening old wounds and creating new dreams. He began to understand that the town's women were not only dealing with him, they were dealing with themselves. They were dealing with the past and the future. They were dealing with the idea of change. One evening, the man went to the cafe. He sat alone, thinking about everything. He saw women talking quietly at nearby tables. He saw them laughing, but he could sense the tension beneath their smiles. He saw the way they looked at him when he walked in. He realized that his time in the town was becoming a turning point. He realized that the town was changing because of him, and he did not know if the change was good or bad. He thought about the woman at the park. He thought about her honesty. He thought about the pain in her voice. He thought about her hope. He knew that he had to be careful. He knew that he had to be honest. He knew that he had to leave the town with respect. But he also knew that he could not control the town's feelings. He could not control what the women wanted. He could only control his own actions. The man looked at the clock. He saw that it was late. He stood up and walked back to the hotel. The night was quiet. The town was calm. He knew that tomorrow would be another day of pressure. He knew that the town's women would still be watching him. He knew that the town's future was still uncertain. He lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. He wondered what would happen next. He wondered if he could finish his work without breaking anyone's heart. He wondered if he could leave without causing pain. He wondered if he could handle the weight of their expectations. And he wondered if the town would ever be the same again. The last weeks in the town passed quickly, almost like a dream. The man could feel that the days were moving faster than before. It was not because the work was finishing. It was because the town was changing. The women were becoming more careful with their feelings, and the man was becoming more careful with his actions. The town had entered a new phase, a phase where the future felt close but also unclear. As the end of his work approached, the man began to think about leaving. He had always known that his stay was temporary, but now that the end was near, he felt a strange sadness. He had grown attached to the town. He had grown attached to the women who had welcomed him, even if they did it with caution. He had grown attached to the quiet life, the simple conversations, and the way people cared for each other. He realized that the town had become more than a job for him. It had become a place that had changed him. He had learned a new way of living. He had learned that people could survive and build a life even when the world did not support them. He had learned that strength could be quiet and gentle. One morning, he woke up and felt the weight of the last days. He knew he needed to talk to the community leaders again. He wanted to be honest and clear about his plans. He wanted to make sure that he was leaving in a way that respected the town. He went to the community hall and asked to speak to the older woman who had spoken to him before. She greeted him with a calm face, but her eyes showed that she understood the importance of the moment. The man said, "My work is almost finished. I will be leaving soon." The older woman nodded slowly. She replied, "We know. We have been preparing ourselves." The man took a deep breath. He continued, "I want to thank you for welcoming me. I know it has not been easy for you. I know that my presence has affected your lives." The older woman listened carefully. The man continued, "I also want to tell you the truth. I do not plan to stay longer than my work. I have a life outside this town. I have responsibilities. I cannot change my life just because I came here." The older woman looked at him. She did not show disappointment. She showed understanding. She said, "We expected this. We hoped, but we also understood." The man nodded. He felt a deep sadness, but also relief. He had been honest, and the town had accepted his honesty. The older woman spoke again. She said, "We want to ask you something." The man asked, "What is it?" She said, "When you leave, please tell others about us. Tell them that we are not strange. Tell them that we are strong. Tell them that we have built a life." The man promised. He said, "I will tell the truth. I will not spread rumors." The older woman nodded. She looked at him with a gentle expression. She said, "Thank you." After the meeting, the man walked through the town. He saw women going about their daily lives. Some of them looked at him with sadness. Some looked at him with hope. Some looked at him with respect. He realized that he had become part of their story, even if only for a short time. That evening, the town held a small farewell gathering. It was not a big party. It was a simple meeting in the community hall. The women wanted to say goodbye properly. They wanted to show their gratitude and their respect. The man arrived at the hall and saw the women sitting in chairs. They had prepared food and drinks. The atmosphere was calm and respectful. The women smiled, but their smiles were quiet. One of the younger women stood up and spoke. She said, "Thank you for coming to our town. Thank you for working with us." Another woman added, We know you had a job to do. We know you did not come to change our lives, but your presence has changed us." The man listened. He felt a strong emotion. He realized that his presence had been more powerful than he had imagined. One woman spoke again. She said, "We have learned something from you," the man asked. "What is it?" She replied, "We learned that we can still feel hope. We learned that we can still dream. We learned that we can still be open to change." The man nodded. He felt proud of them. He felt proud of their strength. Then the older woman spoke again. She said, "We also want to say something else." The man listened carefully. The older woman continued, "We want you to know that we are not angry with you. We are not blaming you for the feelings we had. We are grateful for your honesty. We are grateful that you respected us." The man felt a warm feeling in his heart. He realized that the town's women were not weak. They were strong enough to accept the truth. The meeting ended, and the women began to leave. The man stayed for a moment, watching them. He saw the way they walked, the way they carried themselves. He saw the quiet strength in their eyes. As he walked back to the hotel, he thought about the young woman who had asked him about loneliness. He thought about the woman at the park. He thought about the community leaders. He thought about the town's history. He realized that the town had been living with a long silence. His arrival had broken that silence. He also realized that the town would continue to live. It would continue to be a place where women supported each other. It would continue to be a place where life was simple and strong. It would continue to be a place where people had learned to survive without help from the outside world. The next morning, he packed his things. He checked out of the hotel. He walked to his car and sat inside for a moment. He looked at the town one last time. He felt a deep emotion. He wanted to say goodbye to everyone, but he also knew that he had to leave quietly. He drove slowly down the main road. He saw the women standing outside their homes, watching him. Some waved, some nodded. Some looked sad. The man waved back. He felt a strong connection to them, even though he had only been there for a short time. As he drove away, he felt the town getting smaller behind him. He thought about the stories he would tell. He thought about the truth he promised to share. He thought about the way the town had changed him. He realized that he had learned something important. He learned that people can build a life even in difficult situations. He learned that strength can come from pain. He learned that hope can return, even after many years. He also realized that the town's women would continue their lives, with or without him. They would continue to support each other. They would continue to build their future. But he knew that his arrival had left a mark. He knew that the town's women would remember him. He knew that he would remember them. And he knew that the town would never be the same again.